Now, the table is always hot with current events and social issues, but sometimes the heat can get a little intense. Let's turn the temp down, take a breather, and get into this week's topic cool down. Andre, what are you bringing to the table?
So today, Daquan, I have a interesting cool down. I wanted to ask you, do you ever miss someone who you
No,
cut off to
I'm kidding. You
No!
can finish the question.
Well, do you ever miss someone? Do you ever miss someone who you cut off to protect your energy?
Absolutely not. If I cut somebody off to protect my energy, it's to protect my energy, and that's it. As long as my energy is protected, there's nothing to regret.
Yeah.
I think we've established so many times on this podcast that my energy is sacred to me, and I really value my energy because I know my worth and I respect my worth. And so if you are bringing such negativity into my life and you are, degrading my energy so much that I need to block you or cut you off, then that is that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm generally a pretty chill person. Like, it
Yeah.
takes a lot to really make me mad. So when you bring me to that point, you've done a whole lot of things that's I just personally I can't deal with anymore. And so I block you to protect my energy. And honestly, it hasn't happened a lot of times. Like, the people that I think of when I think of this question and who I've cut off, I don't miss them at all because I think more often I miss the ignorance that I had when I was with
Mm,
them. I think about how, unbothered I was back then, or how unhurt I was, even when we were going through different things. Like, there was a version of me back then that was a little bit more innocent and a little bit more, optimistic about that
yeah.
relationship, that now I'm just like, well, this person hurt me in a certain way that, like, I don't really want them in my life because I don't want to give them the opportunity to hurt me in that way again. And so cut off. But, I miss that version of me more than I miss the actual person that I cut off.
Yeah. I think this question was supposed to be a cool down, but it kind of hits a little home to me. Is why I brought it up. Because on the show we honest, we come correct. But recently, I had to cut off someone I loved out of my life because they chose not to respect the fact that I went by she, her pronouns. This person was my best friend for almost 5 years, and cutting them off was one of the most difficult things I've had to do in a long time. I tried everything to fix it, followed all the rules on how to approach someone when they've hurt you, went to a therapist, the works. And when we finally had our, final confrontation, they still chose to argue, discredit my feelings, and gaslight me into believing that I was the one at fault. So I broke off all contact with them, and we haven't spoken since. I was, and I still am pretty heartbroken by the experience. There are days when I wish that I could have ignored how my friend using he, him pronouns when talking to me made me feel, but I couldn't. When I was around him, I just felt drained because every time he didn't use my preferred pronouns, it triggered my gender dysphoria and slowly made me begin to hate being around him altogether. And I gave him chance after chance and explained to him several times that I was non-binary and my pronouns are she, her, hers, but he just refused to understand and respect that. Um, as much pain as this person put me through towards the end of our friendship, I still miss him. Um, I don't regret ending the friendship. I don't regret protecting my energy because, like Daquan said, your energy is sacred. Um, and I'm not upset about not tolerating that disrespect anymore, but I still miss who he was to me.
Mhm.
That person was like a brother to me, and I loved him. And it's incredibly painful to know that I can't call him anymore and that we're never hanging out again. And that he's no longer allowed in my life. It's hard when you realize you have to let go of someone you love to protect your peace. But you know, if they really loved you, they would do everything in their power to make sure they never became a disruption to your peace in the first place.
Right.
I think it's okay to miss someone who hurt you. It's okay to remember the love you once shared between each other, but you have to remember that no person's love is worth you sacrificing your happiness and comfort, you know? And I think that
Yeah.
that's what I had to kind of deal with, you know. It's really hard to do that. It's really hard to cut someone out because you like Daquan, I'm the same way when it comes to people. I try to give chance after chance after chance, you know. I try to say, hey, like, we can work through this, we can get forward. But there's a certain point where you're like, all right, bitch. All right, I choose me.
Right.
You know? Have you ever run into that, Daquan? Like anybody, even if it's not necessarily a cutoff, but somebody who said, we're done. Like, you're done. like,
Oh, absolutely. I think the biggest thing was, college. Because I think for so long, you have people that are in your life because they're almost forced into your life. You probably hang around the same circles, you
yeah,
may be in the same classes, extracurriculars, X, Y, and Z. So you're kind of forced to be together.
yeah,
And so I think that for the longest time, there was people where I was forced to be with them because we had circles that co-aligned. But then graduating college, it was like, all right, these, these things that forced us together are no longer
in
forcing us
place.
together,
Yeah,
are no longer in place. And so it was my choice to be like, do I still want to try to deal with this relationship, have another fresh start after
yeah,
having fresh start after fresh start after fresh start? And it really came down to, this role that this person was in my life, like, not to be like utilitarian or be like, oh, you have to be like X use to me or whatever, but
yeah,
like the role that they played in my life, I could feel elsewhere. And I think that's the hardest thing is if somebody is like, a brother to you and they feel like that hole in your heart, when you cut them off, it's so hard and you're going to miss that part that was filled. But for me in this situation, it was like, no, I did not like being disrespected. I
mm-hmm,
did not like having my character defamed and, you
mm-hmm,
know, all of these situations. And I didn't like me feeling like I needed to expend so much more energy in a relationship than that person did, even though we quote unquote like had that same like feelings towards each other and like how we identify as best friends or whatever. And so I was just like, I'm done. This situation I'm not going to deal with because frankly, I don't have that energy to go out and like deal with everything of adulthood and still have to deal with petty college, high school type drama. Like, no, I'm growing up, I'm moving on, and frankly, you are not obligated to my life. And so I'm going to set this hard boundary, cut it off. If somewhere down the road we talk again, oh well. But like as at this moment, no, I'm not going to give you any opportunity because that gives you an opportunity to hurt me in the same way that you hurt me before. So protecting my energy. I don't
yeah.
have my scissors. Wait,
you do gotta.
they're different scissors.
But yeah, no, I really feel you though, Daquan. I think that there's a part of all of us who looks for certain people to fill certain spaces in our lives. And I think that
Mhm.
sometimes, you know, in life, you have to make difficult decisions. And I think that when you grow up and you mature and you start to evaluate your life in a different way, you know what I'm saying? When you become more socially aware, you start unpacking your transphobia, homophobia, your internalized racism, misogynoir, all that stuff. When you start doing the work to see who you really are and to confront your own faults, it becomes a lot more difficult to be friends with superficial people who
Right.
are not also doing that work, who are not also open to being criticized. I've made it very clear in my life, a lot of the friends that I have come from very different walks of life. But one of the things that I think that bonds a lot of my friendships together now, and this at 23 versus when I was a kid, is that now I'm not so much looking for friends as I'm looking for just a quantity, but looking for quality in friendships. So
Right.
I understand what you mean about not necessarily being utilitarian, but also understanding, are we helping each other grow? Are we fostering real communication with each other to become better people? Do you make me a better person? Do I help make you a better person? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I think that that's what real friendship is. A real friend is not going to sit there and just be like, oh yeah, girl, you ate all the time. You don't ever do anything wrong. That's fake. That's not real. That's superficial. A real friend be like,
Right.
hey, bitch, you fucked up. You did. You
Right.
did.
Or
And you
even
got some.
just like, do you feel happy around this person?
Yeah.
Because there are
Yeah.
just, in terms of people that I cut off, it wasn't, I feel happy around this person. It's, I feel like I have to walk on eggshells. I feel like
Yeah.
I have to, you know, coddle what I want to say and things I want to do to just completely cater to the wants of and desires of this other person. And it's like, no, I'm a human being too. There are
Yeah.
things that I want to do. There are things that I want to say. And, of course, like there's all different types of compromises and stuff like that that
Yeah.
happens in relationships. But
Mm-hmm.
if it's only you compromising for this other person, that's not truly a compromise. That's not truly a great relationship.
At all. Now, so many children grow up never knowing the full scope of what their culture has contributed to society and history. So, Daquan, I think it's time for a change. Let's take a pause, rewind, and remind the world just how we did that. In the article, Famous African Americans, we learn about Esther Roll, an American actress known for her performances on CBS television sitcoms. Born on November 8th, 1920, in Pompano Beach, to Jonathan and Elizabeth Roll, Roll's first screen appearance was for an uncredited role in Robert Mulligan's To Kill a Mockingbird in 1962. Roll then appeared in The Learning Tree alongside her sister, Estelle Evans, in 1969. She shot to prominence once she started acting for the incredibly famous sitcom Maude in 1972, playing Florida Evans, an open-minded, no-nonsense housekeeper to the lead character of the show. The role of Florida Evans was so popular that Roll was granted a spin-off series in 1974 titled Good Times, in which she played the lead role. In 1975, she was nominated for a Golden Globe for her performance in Good Times. In 1979, Roll also acted in the movie Summer of My German Soldier, for which she won an Emmy. After Good Times, Roll mostly acted in direct-to-TV movies. She was in Driving Miss Daisy in 1989 and Peter Segal's My Fellow Americans. One of her more famous roles was in Fielder Cook's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which was based on Maya Angelou's memoir. She also acted in John Singleton's Rosewood in 1997. All in all, she acted for 15 stage plays from 1965 to 1989 and 22 separate television roles from 1964 to 1998. She died on November 17th, 1998 in Culver City, California at 78 due to complications from her diabetes. But Daquan, I gotta say, baby, Esther Roll was booked and blessed, booked and busy.
Period. Black women.
Black women, black women, black women, black women.
We love to see it. And so my we did that comes from blackpast.org, where we learned that Octavius Valentine Catto was a prominent Philadelphia, Pennsylvania activist, scholar, athlete, and military officer in the National Guard during the Civil War. In Philadelphia by 1854, he became a student at the Institute for Colored Youth, now Cheyney University, and graduated as valedictorian in 1858. Caddo furthered his studies in Washington, D.C., and upon his return became an instructor of literature, mathematics, Greek, and Latin at the Institute for Colored Youth. Caddo founded the Banneker Literary Institute and the Pennsylvania Equal Rights League in October 1864. He was a member of several other civic, literary, patriotic, and political groups, including the Philadelphia Library Company, Fourth Ward Black Political Club, and the Franklin Institute. After the Civil War, Caddo started a Philadelphia protest movement that led to the passage of the 1867 Pennsylvania law that prohibited racially segregated public transportation. Later the same year, Caddo and his childhood friend Jacob White Jr. formed the city's second black baseball team, the Philadelphia Pythians, of which he was a co-manager and player. On Election Day, October 10th, 1871, Caddo was murdered along with several other blacks in a Philadelphia riot when local African Americans attempted to vote as a result of the state's ratification of the 15th Amendment.
Black people.
Period. Like, being an activist in the 1800s?
It's crazy. Like, talk about bad bitch energy. About. But as always, thank you all so much for watching, and keep the conversation going down in the comment box below. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and if you are listening to us on our podcast, please rate and review on whatever platform you're using. You can also follow our podcast on Instagram and TikTok at The Melanin Margin for updates of new content.
And if you'd like to follow each of us, our handles are at DaquanMUE
and at Andre Talks a Lot.
Now, we will see you all next week on The Melanin Margin, where our goal is always to bring to the marginalized to the spotlight in any way we can. Goodbye now.